Welcome, everybody, to Church of the Redeemer's online campus and another Zoomcast. I have with me today Elizabeth Fisher-Good of Selah Freedom. Elizabeth is the co-founder and the chief strategy officer of Selah Freedom, and a partner with us, our Episcopal thrift store, which just started operations again a couple weeks ago, is a major donor to Selah Freedom, and Elizabeth was with us for a rector's class not too long ago and spoke a little bit about Selah. Welcome, Elizabeth. It's good to have you.
Thank you. Thrilled to be here. Love you guys. So grateful for you.
Wonderful. So, Elizabeth, for those who've never heard of Selah and Selah Freedom, could you tell us a little bit about your history and your mission and what you all do?
Yeah. We've been talking about it for a decade, so I always think everybody already knows, but every time I come in a crowd and people raise their hand, they're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, because it's sex trafficking, but it's sex trafficking in America. So we say we're bringing light to the darkness because it's so quick to think, oh, this problem only happens overseas or it doesn't happen here. And what we are dealing with exclusively at Selah Freedom, and our hub is right here in Sarasota, is domestic American children that are being sold for sex. And so like the background of it is hiding childhood sexual abuse, and then they can't take it anymore. They run away, they get coerced and horrifically sold 15 to 40 times a day. And we could get into more stats, but it's not what people think. It's not, oh, that child in a box. It's somebody that's running from something and they're open to coercion and end up in places much darker than what they're running from in every zip code.
Wow. So one of the ways I learned about you was hearing about an extremely successful program that Selah started with Sarasota Police Department. And I think it is one of the most amazing new ways of looking at law enforcement that I've ever heard of. And I think it actually could be applied to a lot of things other than just sex trafficking and prostitution. So if you would share with us what you did with Sarasota Police Department, our wonderful police department, I think that'd be a great story.
I'm going to take these off. I think it's going to be easier if I take these off. I'm sorry. They're going in and out. No, Sarasota PD, I cannot speak highly enough about Sarasota Police. Hang on one second. Let me put these away. Sorry, guys, for my disruption, my technical difficulty. SPD, quite honestly, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Back in 2012, we were approaching law enforcement because back in 2011, when we started all this in 2010, they used to arrest children for prostitution. So not just here, everywhere. So it'd be like, oh, this horrible kid. They would try to throw the kids in jail and be like, oh, John, go home to your wife. And they were criminalizing the children. And so much so that every time they arrested a child, 3 misdemeanors for prostitution would equal a felony. So we would get a little girl that's 18 that had been arrested and on the streets since she was 13 with 20 felonies because she was being sold for sex. So we go to SPD and Deputy Chief Pat Robinson, he was there then, and he's always doing stuff with me now. And he'll say, I remember when you walked in telling us what you know that we don't know. They were so awesome because Chief DePino had just started as well. And they're like, not this population. This is the most belligerent population. Like there was such a stigma around prostitution and not the realization that this was not a victimless crime, that these were children that had been on the streets running from abusive situations and led into coercion. And SPD said yes. They were open to exploring it, creating, some new ideas with us. And so between SPD and State's Attorney's Office here in Sarasota, we created what we called TILA at the time, Turn Your Life Around. Instead of prostitution court, like drug court, Turn Your Life Around is much prettier. And it helped these girls that had been on the streets and arrested with all these felonies. And so law enforcement finally allowed the paradigm shift. And when they heard the background stories, they said, oh my gosh, these are children that they've been used their whole lives, and everything just shifted. And we've turned around and created a model now that they train with us all over the country. We created one of the very first prostitution court diversion courts in the country. And if you would have asked Pat Robinson in, I think it was 2018 or 17, he'd say, since working with Selah Freedom, we've cleaned up the Sarasota area 40%, prostitution's down 40%. And now when he does an interview with me, he'll say, it's non-existent. I can't even say 90. They just don't come here. They know better. And so it's amazing. And our girls that come in the house will even admit that. Their traffickers will say, we're not going to take you to Sarasota.
Wow.
So SPD, I cannot speak highly enough. They said yes before the curve, and we are created a national model.
That's really incredible. And how many police departments are you working with now?
Oh, our hubs of where we actually do work is in Florida. So we're, between Hillsborough, and we go down to Fort Myers area, and then we'll take girls from all over the state. Like the sheriffs in Martin County on the other side will send us girls, and in collaboration we'll help them. But our two hubs are here in Chicago, the Midwest, and Wisconsin. But we train law enforcement agencies all over the country. We'll grab a state's attorney from here, law enforcement, and we will go and train. We trained 40 agencies in Connecticut.
Wow.
And those 40 agencies, after we came in, one guy had been on the force 20 years. And he said, you know what? It was like walking in with one eye and walking out with two. We had no idea. So many little towns don't know the laws have changed. They're still arresting kids.
Yeah.
Insane. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And how much fruit have the rehabilitation of these girls that have been victimized for so long, and often went from being a victim in a home situation to being a victim by someone else? How often have you bore fruit where these girls finally are strong enough to put those people who victimize them away by supporting law enforcement?
Yeah, three things quickly come to mind. It's like, oh, there's so many good stories, like this, or this. Because you sort of asked such a big question. Like, one is what's happening to put these guys away.
Mm-hmm.
And what I can tell you in that is, I just was pulling up the stats last night for some speaking to. Our girls have convicted 12 traffickers, and a total of 120 years. One guy was given 2 concurrent sentences. What happens is the girls, it's still no matter what sort of abuse you come from, it could be domestic violence, any sort of abuse, it typically takes 7 to 8 times for somebody to receive help. They might think something's wrong, they might hint about it, they might go for help, but then change their mind, no, I'm okay. So same with us. That's why our outreach team partners with law enforcement, and will chase a girl for 2 years because she doesn't think she's worth it. And they will tell her, hey, there's more. And she might come to our first assessment home, and after a week say, oh, I'm okay now, I could help him, because they sort of think these guys love them. Mm-hmm. So once they do come and they do stay, and you get past those barriers of 7 to 8 times, we are now at a success rate of 87% of the girls we work with do not return to the life.
That's amazing.
It's amazing. They step into their God-destined gifting.
God, that's amazing. So this month, or yesterday of this month, June 30th, was Global Sex Trafficking Awareness Day. Can you tell me a little bit about that? And
what's great about that is that they just keep adding new days, So It used to be January was Sex Trafficking Awareness Month. Now yesterday was Sex Trafficking Awareness Day.
Yeah.
I think what it's saying is that our culture is finally waking up to acknowledge, because it was like talking into a vacuum for almost a decade, and we would be talking, and it might hit a newspaper, but then everyone just forgets about it. And I think Jeffrey Epstein and the big headlines has helped this be a little more permanent. So I love that globally now there's this awakening of like, hey, let's not forget this. And I think that's why they threw together this day.
That makes sense. Now, you all have an initiative this summer. It's called Keep Kids Safe for Summer. Tell us about that. And everybody listen up, because Elizabeth gave me a little bit of info on this as we were talking beforehand, and I was blown away. Yeah. So go ahead.
Well, what I love about this is just so people have understanding. So right here where we are in Sarasota, there's 4 different things that we do at Selah Freedom. One is education and awareness, like we're doing right now, awareness. 2 is the outreach, where we're chasing after girls that are already on the streets. They're over 18. The other is residential, and that's also for girls that are 18 and older. They might be developmentally like a 12-year-old because they've been on the streets since they were 12 and education-wise. But to me, my personal favorite is prevention, because this is getting ahead of the issue, and this is being proactive, because it's teaching children not to keep secrets, and it's helping them avoid what could lead them to needing our other programs when they're grown. And we actually, with Vern Buchanan, we have a bill that's now pending in Congress. When he realized how expansive our prevention work has grown, he's like, we have to draft a bill. Let's get some money behind this. It's big enough. But what it is kindergarten through 12th grade. And people were like, oh my gosh, you talk about this with kids in kindergarten? The average age a child starts being sexually abused is 3, 4, 5 years old. So the beauty of it is our curriculum, it's for kindergarten, first grade, second grade, is so age appropriate. It's coloring books. And there's been a mandate. Florida was the first state in the country that mandated sex trafficking education in public schools. So it has to go into kindergarten, first, second, all the way through 12. And this is what our campaign is this summer, because when COVID hit, like I had children, mine are older, but they came home from college March 13th and never went back.
Yeah.
One of them is still here. All those younger kids, though, everything went online. So prior to COVID, the stats were already 1 out of 9 children is being coerced on social media by a predator and a trafficker. There are sites after sites after sites that the kids are not knowing who they're talking to. And young children, I was talking to one of our law enforcement partners in St. Louis, and he said it used to be 11-year-olds. I was always having to intervene online with 11-year-olds, naked pictures, things happening. He's like, now it's 7-year-olds. So our summer campaign is to exponentially get in front of every parent possible. It's free. So we are doing, instead of our staff used to go into schools, into like juvenile detention centers, into foster care. Now with COVID, we can't. And so we're doing as many children as we can online, but they're at home, we're offering it free. Our staff is just ramping up all of these online courses called Sex, Lies, and Media. And so parents can tune in and learn some safety tips, because the kids know so much more than the parents. And there are such just simple things you can do. And one of our graduates from our program, so she's been out of our program 4 years. She has children now. She has a son that is, I think he's 9. And she sat through the Sex, Lies, and Media online the other day, and she got done. She goes, oh my gosh, I think my son has that app on his phone. And she went to his app and she literally found all of these men that were coming after her son. As a child, I mean, it sounds like they'd be like, oh no, but they don't know what to do. All of a sudden they're like, oh, do this. So she was able to intervene because this stuff is so generational. So our Keep Kids Safe for Summer campaign is asking people to, like, you could say, hey, I'm going to get all of the other fathers in Redeemer, and we're going to come together and make our own little team. And anybody could just say, you can go online and you build a team, and there's teams competing. We have a team in Norway. It's so cool. And it's just a money raise, but it could be you all spend $20. It doesn't matter. But every time you invite a friend to help you do it, they go online, they have to learn, they read the page of what it is. They could sign up for a free parenting class. So money, time, helping spread the news. I mean, this is huge, because these children, it's just remarkable what they're up against these days.
It's incredible. Keep Kids Safe for Summer. And wow, it's very scary. Do you want to name some of the apps that parents need to look for on their kids' phones that shouldn't be on there?
There's so many. I would not do it justice, because I'd be like, believe it or not, TikTok. That's one that there's been a lot of problems lately. That's a newer one. Snapchat all day long, because Snapchat, the messages disappear. So somebody could be completely pursuing your child, and all their interactions and the photos they have your kids send disappear on your side, but they screenshot them on theirs. There's a ton. And I would encourage parents, I think it's a half hour online. It's not a very long, cumbersome thing to observe. But if you're a grandparent, you could sit in on it, have your daughter, your son, anyone who has children. It's just eye-opening.
Yeah, that's it is very scary. Do you guys have an official stance on how old a young person should be before they start using social media or any of those tactics? I mean, it's tough.
I hate it. I'm so glad children are older, because I mean, what the American Academy of Pediatrics says, they say that I think it was 92% of 4-year-olds now have smart devices. So parents are putting devices in their kids' hands at 4. And I think the problem with that is it's become a way of babysitting, right? It keeps your kid busy. But what people don't know is, like, the typical iPhone, right, will come preloaded to explicit. And unless you know how to turn off that explicit setting, it immediately is an open portal to the pit of hell for a child.
Wow, that's
You
good to
say
know.
the wrong word once, and Safari will throw an image, and it will imprint. They are saying now that psychologically and neurologically, with the type of porn that is now on phones, that when we were little, like an airbrush Playboy was one thing. This is church, we gotta talk about this. That was one thing, but now the porn that's out there is so grotesque and deviant, and it's like, it's something that a child should never see, but they're being raised learning from their phones, thinking this is what sex is. This is what you do if you have a girlfriend. And they're saying it's resetting neural pathways in children prior to the age of 12. And we wonder why divorces and intimacy and people having problems with intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
And one little girl wrote an article, and this one just breaks my heart, but I want parents to hear it because this is my passion. She was, I think, 13 years old, and her article was called 13 and Never Been Kissed, or 14 and Never Been Kissed. But she went on to say that all of her girlfriends are being approached by boys who have been looking at porn since, they say 8 is the average age of porn, 8 years old. By 12, you have addiction. And so these 12 and 13-year-old girls are getting approached by boys, asking them to play out what the boys are watching online, which is choking and spitting and all this stuff while the boys, and the little girl said, I've been used for sex, but I'm still waiting on my first kiss.
Oh my gosh. That's horrendous.
So this is why this is my heart. Every child needs an advocate in their life to make sure they're not that little girl.
Amen. So, wow.
I know. It's a little heavy. The good news is we're making great strides.
Yeah. Well, shifting gears a little bit, one of the things that you are asking for from churches locally is letters of encouragement to some of your girls, and tell us a little bit about that.
It's just so important, especially with COVID, because they've been in. They used to volunteer all over the community. So we have a partnership with Southwest Guide Dogs, where it's smart horse therapy. Like, we do wonderful things around the community where they get to get involved and give back. But now that they're in, they're not having that interaction. And when you're too still, sometimes your brain, right? Satan's always coming after you, trying to make you think the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And you could get the, battlefield of the mind, as we say. And just letters of encouragement. You could just write them. And, so many of us have been through different things in our life in different seasons. So anything, you could just write any bit of encouragement. And we received, at one period when we put this out there to another organization or church, we received a stack, and the girls were blown away. They're like, how would people even care or take the time? And so it really means a lot.
Well, we will try to get on that at Redeemer, I'm sure, and try to help you guys out.
Oh, one thing else I could tell you for Redeemer?
Yeah.
We have a partnership with Fifi's Resale too. So if you guys aren't dropping everything off at yours, you drop it there, it donates back to us too.
That's good to know. It's great.
Mm-hmm. For the ladies.
I don't know, where is Fifi's?
You know what? There's on Highway 70, there's one in Osprey. The one right downtown won't do it with us yet.
Okay.
We're working on it. Well, she hasn't
Good.
had the opportunity yet.
All right, now you have a book entitled Groomed, and you have some groomed groups. Tell me a little bit about your book and the small groups that you all are doing and that you encourage. And
this is cool.
Yeah.
This is the book. I think, is your store carrying it?
I think we have it in our gift shop.
I can't remember. I know we were going to, and then COVID hit.
Yeah.
So we'll figure that out. But what's cool about Groomed, we have the special hardcover, that all of the proceeds go 100% to Selah Freedom. We've raised almost $50,000 for Selah Freedom so far by selling this. But it's not a book about sex trafficking, and that's what's interesting about it. It will teach you about it sort of as a sidebar, but it's a personal journey, because what we are finding, and when I said so much of this is generational, this is a book about secrets. It's about the secrets that we keep. It's about the things we've come into agreement with and led us down a way of thinking. And so it really exposes, I've been doing the Groomed groups that you ask about. They're branched out. They're around the country because we're doing on Zoom. And it's primarily been with women. We have a couple of men. And it's a place to come and going through the chapters. The chapters talks about the ways you might have been groomed, and what have you come into agreement with, and what secrets are you still keeping, and who are you holding them for, and what are the fear. And I am telling you, I've had women from their 20s till their late 70s, and they all, end up in tears, something coming up that they've never been able to tell anybody. And there's a chapter in there, it goes into the Selah, where you pause and then the release. Because I think what happens is people are fearful. It's not like you need to go into counseling and stay in a depressive cycle. I'm a therapist. Like, you don't need to do that for years and years and years of telling your story over and over. But if there's pieces that you still hold shame around, especially in the church, we cannot have that part of us, because that part then doesn't allow you the freedom of speaking into somebody else that needs protection. And so it's like breaking down these barriers and these walls. And I'm watching these women come into freedom, and they're like, I've had a conversation with my daughter. I never thought I would.
Wow.
And so it's off bringing generational freedom, because that's the path to talk about all this stuff. You got to get past your own stuff. And if they say 1 out of 3 little girls has been abused and 1 out of 5 little boys, there's just a lot of secrets out there.
Yeah. It reminds me of, we're a sacramental church, and we have a sacrament of reconciliation, or some call it confession. And really what that is all about is taking the things that you are the most ashamed of, and putting the light of Christ on them, so that they could be forgiven and taken away. And that is such an important concept, an important book, and your work is such an important gift to our community. We thank you, and we cherish our partnership with Selah, and we look to do more with you in the future. Let us know what you need.
Yeah. And you know what? If someone's like, oh, I just want to do more, you can go to our website. There's a get involved. You can go through a background check, and you could do anything. One woman goes, I don't know what I could do. And she's like, I just like to knit. And we're like, they haven't learned to knit. So she comes in, she calls it Chicks with Sticks. And, so they haven't had the grandmas and the cool cousins, so anything that is normal to you is certainly not normal to them. So they would love to have you.
That's amazing. Elizabeth, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, of course, I'm the money raiser. So there's a matching gift behind that. Keep kids safe for summer. So I know that now the next 10,000 or so is doubled anything you give. So that's
wow.
People like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah, we're grateful. We're grateful for you guys. We're grateful for this great community. And I love that you started with SPD, because we need to give our law enforcement some love. They do amazing, amazing work.
Amen. Well, Elizabeth, I really appreciate you being with us today, and I hope this video goes viral and everybody, yes. The whole world learns about Selah, because you are doing great, really important work that must be done.
Thank you. SelahFreedom.com.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Take care.